Got one quick question, is the pump 3 has a CO2 and pump 4 has the PCE. Will this filtration system for the PCE take the CO2 out? And that's something to consider with that, that filtration system will bring pump 3 back online. It might be something like
Is it the same type of filtration system?
Yeah, that's why my
Carbon?
question is.
That's a really good question, and my answer is I don't know.
Okay.
I'd have to look into it.
Cool. All right.
Thank you, Steve. Okay.
That's what I would assume, yeah. I think not, but I can't definitively tell you no.
Sure.
Two different ones are. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so we are now moving into the business session of this meeting. Our first is 6.1. I know that Phil can't talk, but Rick can.
Absolutely, we can do it. Water system improvement project engineering service amendment number 3. In light of significant delays, Curtin McLeod has expended all of the engineering budgets for the 2017 water system improvement budget. Curtin McLeod is requesting an amendment not to exceed $7,500 per month for not more than 3 months for contracting, administration, and inspection services. This amount will be billed at a time and materials basis and is expected to take an additional 1 to 3 months. Kerr McLeod has spent significant efforts in responding to change order requests and slowdowns from the contractor. They have also performed a number of services not anticipated in the original budget, such as redesigning a well house for number 7 and the design of a carbon filtration system for well number 7. That is the issue at hand, is their amendment.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'd like to ask you a question. So,
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
the $7,500 monthly, what's that? It's for you or the 7.5, you know, the $7,500 a month, what is it used for? That's for you?
Yeah, that's for Curran McLeod for either engineering services that we have to do, construction administration. And it's really actually for past services because unfortunately, and again, due to circumstances out of everyone's control, I asked for this, I talked with Louis for some time. We have basically not billed this water project since June or July because we simply ran out of money. And it was intended to be a 6-month duration, and then I had a little extra because I figured we'd given the contractor 300 days to perform this work, which is a long length of time because at the end of the day, it's not a very complicated project. And so when I got into the fall, we just had expended so much of our own funds. I did come and talk to the city administrator and say, can we at least just break even? We come down and we spend a couple thousand a month on site visits, going back and forth with the contractor, writing the booklets that you have. That takes quite a bit of time having to do that. And so I was just hoping to get some, basic expenses paid. Right now, we're basically done, so I would just back bill
So
for the
one
time.
wouldn't exceed $7,500.
It wouldn't exceed the 22,500 total.
Yeah.
You're just trying to recoup costs from last year.
Exactly, yeah, that was it. And not all of our costs either. Our true costs were significantly higher.
Okay. Okay. Motion, Bobby?
Yeah, I move to approve the water system improvement project engineering services amendment number 3, change orders in the amount of $22,500.
Second.
Chrissy Hollett seconded, and I'm losing my voice too, it sounds like. Any further discussion? Will you call for a vote?
Mayor Holston,
Aye.
Councilor Borkum,
Right.
Councilor Whitney,
Aye.
Councilor Barenboim,
Aye.
Councilor Hadley,
Aye.
Councilor Hollett,
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll move on to 6.2. And Rick?
Yes, 6.2, selection of bid for boring of test well number 3. On behalf of the city, Ed Hodges of Kerr McLeod solicited 3 bids for the drilling of test well number 3. They received 1 bid for this part of the water system improvement project. The received bid that was submitted was reviewed for conformance with the solicitation requirements by Kerr McLeod. The bid from Casey Jones Well Drilling in an amount of $37,180 is a recommended bid by Kerr McLeod. A review of the Oregon Water Resource Records indicated that Casey Jones Well Drilling currently has all required proper registrations, bonding, and insurance to do this work. And this is the test well that we've been discussing on the highway at Green Waters.
Do I hear a motion? Bobby?
I move we award the contract for drilling test well number 3 to Casey Jones Well Drilling, allowing Kern McLeod to deliver all needed contract documents for execution of test well number 3.
Second.
That was Stan. Any discussion?
So last time, when you presented some of this to us, I remember you saying that you had a grant to help cover this?
Yeah, I got a technical assistance grant and loan. It's $40,000 total, and of that $40,000, $20,000 is an outright grant, and then the remainder, $20,000, is a short-term loan. I think it has a term of 6 or 7 years at 2%, and basically, you just don't even see any impact on your rates for $17,000 when it's spread out over the user base.
Any other discussion?
Just hope it's good water.
Me
It's
too.
kind of the deal.
Me too. Rub your crystal balls. Did you have a question, Stan?
No, second.
Oh, that's right. Call for a vote?
Counselor Hadley,
Aye.
Counselor Howitt.
Aye.
Mayor Holston,
Aye.
Counselor Forcom,
Aye.
Counselor Whitney,
Aye.
Counselor Barenboim,
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. Let's go to 6.4, am I right? 6.3. Sorry. I'm good now. 6.3.
Rehabilitation of well number 2 and removal of well number 4 from the public drinking water system. During the initial testing of the newly drilled well number 7, tetrachloride ethylene, or TCE, was discovered at rates above the Oregon drinking water maximum contaminant level, or the MCL. This finding prompted the testing outside of the every 3-year requirement. Public Works has been tasked with 6 months of well tests regarding TCE, and presented to you are the results of those 6 months of testing. The testing has shown that well number 4 has consistently shown low levels of TCE. In an effort to reduce the contaminant, staff and our engineer have discussed the possibility of removing well number 4 from the system. But there are a few things that need to be considered before removing well number 4. Well number 4 is low producing at approximately 110 to 150 gallons per minute, or 150,000 to 170,000 gallons per day, and runs constantly at 24 hours per day. The other 3 wells are on an automated call-out system and only run when there is a demand from the reservoirs. The low producing well provides the chlorination system its required flow to maintain a prime. Without the prime, staff would be required to manually prime the system at the startup of each well. Removing well number 4 from the system would result in more runtime and more frequent startups of the other remaining wells, increasing stress and use and stresses of startups. Of the 3 remaining wells, they average between 400 and 500 gallons per minute. Due to the higher yield, they must be able to turn off and on throughout the day, depending on need. And this does not allow for a constant flow needed for the chlorination system. Due to the motor's design, they will only run in full flow or not at all. Of the 3 wells, number 2 is in need of a rebuild. Both the shaft and motor have exceeded their life expectancy, even to the point where the shaft has been worn into an hourglass shape. Upon rehabilitation of well number 2, a different style motor known as a variable speed drive would be the recommended option, allowing for the well to flow at a pre-described rate A variable speed drive would give us the tools needed to flow at a rate that does not lose prime of the chlorination system, and would also allow for larger flow rates when needed. And again, please take advantage of having our public works staff and engineer of record ask any questions regarding this topic, because they are definitely more knowledgeable than I am on this, so.
So I'm gonna ask for discussion before I make a motion, because I'm not sure I understand what I just heard.
Very good.
So what's it gonna cost us to fix that one, if we shut the one down?
So if I may, if you look at the recommended motion, it was not to actually do it. The recommended motion, what I'm asking for is a motion that directs staff and city engineer to do the research. Put in the hours, put in the time needed to give you that answer.
Just,
Because we don't have an answer at the moment. We're just looking for the possibility to go seek out that answer.
Okay.
We know that the public, the people, including myself, are worried about the TCE levels and the drinking water. And I have a hard time sleeping at night knowing that people are concerned with that issue. It is my responsibility to make sure that everybody here has clean drinking water. Knowing that that is in there scares me, and I don't scare very easily. Removing well number 4 though does cause problems with the hydraulics in the system, especially the chlorination process. We have to chlorinate our wells due to the the problem we have in well number 2, which has the high iron content. That gives you a false positive in your coliform samples, which is why we have to chlorinate. The only reason why we have to chlorinate.
So I wanna interject in there,
Yeah.
just in case someone didn't hear you clearly, because they probably heard the word chloroform. Is that how I say that? Coliform, or whatever, how you
Gives
say
a
it.
false positive.
It gets a
Iron
false
gives you-
positive, which
yes.
means we don't have coliform, but the iron causes it to appear that we do, which is
Correct.
why we add the chlorine, even though we don't technically have to, by law we have to, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanna make sure that's clear.
So
That's the gist of it.
with well number 4 consistently running 24/7, 365, the mag meter, which comes out of the well field, gets a 4 to 20 reading, which is probably gonna go, because it still goes over my head. Sends that signal to the chlorination pump and tells it to continuously inject chlorine at a set rate.
Okay.
As the other wells kick on, that rate increases, so it pumps more chlorine depending on the amount of gallons get pumped in there. If you take number 4 off, that chlorination pump does not get a signal because the mag meter isn't reading any water traveling through the pipes. So then that chlorine sits in that pump, and it is a very active or volatile chemical. If you watch and look at it, it creates air bubbles. Well, pumps and air don't go together. And once that happens, once it gets that air bubble and another well kicks on, it'll sit there and just sound like it'll pump, and it is pumping, but it's just pushing that air bubble back and forth.
Okay.
So that point, when those bigger wells kick on, it is actually sending that higher iron content out of well number 2 into the drinking water system. We take a sample, or you take a sample, and it comes back with a false positive of coliform. That's where we have issues.
Okay, so what's the timeline for this if we say, if it's this is approved, then what are you looking at as far as getting back to us and saying this would be our recommendation?
I would like to get answers to you as quick as possible, because as I said, when well 2 fails, it's a lot more expensive for me to go out and just
Okay,
call these people to come up and fix it, rather than me going out and seeking
2 weeks, a
several
month?
people.
I would say a month max. When is the next council meeting? Was it next?
21st of
So-
February,
So next Thursday?
yeah, it's every
Yeah.
other Thursday.
So if we didn't make that, I mean, we could try and make that, we'd definitely make the next one.
Well, yeah,
First one, March
Yeah.
March 7th?
well, we don't need to put a time or date to it, but
That's
that
rough.
sounds
That's
like
a-
roughly
no,
what
but
you're
yeah,
looking at.
Quickly,
Okay.
relatively quickly.
Alright, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I move we direct staff and city engineer of record to do the necessary research to determine the cost and effects of rehabilitating well number 2 for the preparation of removing well number 4 from the city of Oakridge public drinking water system.
Bobby seconded it. Any further discussion? Call for a vote?
Counselor Whitney,
Aye.
Counselor Barenboim, Counselor Howard.
Aye.
Counselor Holcomb, Mayor Holston,
Aye.
Counselor Hadley.
Aye.
Thank you, council. And now we move on to 6.4.
6.4, sole source determination for the wastewater treatment facility ultraviolet disinfection system controls. So the ultraviolet system used in the wastewater treatment plant to treat outgoing water is out of date and has a screen that is almost unreadable. The readings taken from the System Control Center, or SCC, are one of the measures used to keep us in compliance with DEQ. The SCC needs to be replaced. Included here in the staff report is a quote from the automation group, TAG, which is what we commonly call them. We bring this to council consideration as a sole source determination for TAG to do the installation. Normally, this is something we would have gone out for 3 bids for, but we're requesting sole source determination on this one. TAG has previously done most of the work on the city's SCADA system, which is supervisor control and data acquisition, and is a control system architecture that uses computers, network data communications, and graphical user interface for high-level processes of supervisory management, but uses other peripheral devices such as programmable logic controllers and discrete PID controllers to interface the wastewater system facility. Staff feels we will receive a better result by using TAG based upon their familiarity with our system. The use of the automation group for installation of the new UV disinfection system control panel and controls software is suitable for sole source procurement because using them complies with the mandate of ORS 279B.075 section 2 subsection A that states that the efficient utilization of existing goods requires the acquiring compatible goods or services. Specifically, the automation group is familiar with the existing controls and electrical system for the city of Oakridge wastewater treatment facility from performing extensive work previously on these systems at the facility. The use of their services for this project therefore is the best and most efficient use of city funds, because they will be able to perform the work more efficiently than other firms who are less experienced and knowledgeable with the wastewater treatment plant operation, controls, and electrical systems. So basically, in a nutshell for me, TAG has done 99% of our automation and our SCADA work. They're very familiar with our system. They're known for being the best in the Northwest. They're local guys out of Lowell, was it?
Yes.
So they have served us very well. My fear is one of these times they're not going to be the lowest bid. We're going to get somebody in there messing with the system that they're not familiar with. And this is a very complicated system. I feel that having the same firm doing the work time and time again is to our benefit. And again, Robert here knows a lot more about this than I do.
Okay.
And if you have any questions.
And again, I'm open for discussion before we have a motion on this because I'm a little confused. So this cost that I'm looking at is a one-time thing?
For this device.
But when you're talking about this sole source,
It's only for this one-time thing.
it's only for this one-time
Yes.
thing, and so we are avoiding having to get a bid because we're confident in this one, and that's what you're asking us.
This is correct.
The
The
reason-
reason why
Okay.
is because if this device that tells us what the UV intensity is
Mhm.
on the effluent channel fails, we are no longer in compliance with DEQ.
Okay,
We then start getting fined,
I don't want that.
testing beyond all,
Okay.
it just gets real ugly.
Okay,
Robert,
good,
is
Mr. Hess.
the money's there in
Yes, money's in the wastewater.
the wastewater?
Okay,
So, just one thing to point out, TAG replaced our programmable logic controller at the wastewater treatment plant a couple of months ago, 6 or 8 months ago. I don't know if you remember that, but we went out for 3 bids. We got TAG's bid and 2 other bids from 2 other electricians. Both those other electricians subbed to TAG, which meant that their bid was the most expensive.
Got it.
So, in that situation, we would have had TAG doing it anyways,
makes sense.
so.
any other discussion questions before I call for a motion? Motion? Go ahead.
I move we direct staff to take the necessary steps to utilize TAG with a sole source determination for the wastewater treatment facility ultraviolet UV disinfection system control.
Second, anybody?
Second.
Who did it? Phil? Or who's?
What? I did.
Okay. Paul, you did?
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Call for a vote?
Counselor Barenboim, Mayor Holston,
Aye.
Counselor Holcomb,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Hadley,
Aye.
Counselor Whitney.
Aye.
Thank you, council. Now, going through this thing here. And we are at, am I right? Where am I?
7-1.
7.71? Whoa, I'm sorry, guys.
7.
7-1. Rick, you're on the floor again.
Alrighty, 7.1, consideration of amendment to resolution 02-2016, which is a resolution establishing procedures for filling vacancies to allow for excused absences during consideration of applicants. Council has requested the consideration of amending resolution 02-2016 to allow for applicants for appointments of committees and boards to allow for stand-ins during an excused absence. To that end, staff has drafted resolution 01-2019. Please note there are two versions. One that allows for planning commission to allow for stand-in during consideration along with committees and boards, and one that only allows for committees and boards, but not planning commission. So there's two versions. Please note that those are some considerations that, we had.
And who brought this forward?
I'm sorry?
Who brought this forward?
That was
Council did.
Council did?
Yeah, I think it was at our last meeting, we had a discussion of some people who had applied for some of the boards.
Yep.
That weren't gonna be able to be here for reasons, and wanted to know, how can they still, if they can't be at that meeting, because, I think there's a surgery involved, there's a vacation, can they still do that? And considering, staff discussed it, and council said, well, let's set it out and make it possible for them to do that. This is an opportunity to do that. What Rick was saying, there's two versions here. One is, do you wanna just allow people that are on normal, boards and committees as opposed to planning commission? And I have some opinions on that, but that's where that came from. So, let's discuss it first,
Okay.
because it sounds like we have.
If
Go ahead.
people aren't here, they shouldn't be appointed to that. To
So,
me, that's one of the problems. There's been, a lot of them don't come to these committees
Mhm.
anyway, and they don't fulfill it because they're not even here to start.
Mhm.
I think they should be here to be appointed to these positions.
Bobby?
I think this is more to address people with extenuating circumstances that are unusual.
Correct.
And that we would expect that people would,
Which, yeah.
would ask for
Mhm.
an exception ahead of time. Or not even exceptions.
And I would point out that this is asking for a stand-in, to send someone in your
Yeah.
place, and it would be a determined thing. You would have to get permission to do that, and that can be done, from council. So if they knew they weren't gonna be able to come, a phone call to the city administrator, I won't be able to make it that reason, this is the reason why, and then council could be polled if that's okay, so that's just what's on the table.
More. So I think that, for city council and planning commission, people must be present because,
Okay,
and those really have more to do with, judicial and quasi-judicial actions that come out of those, whereas the committees and boards really don't.
Budget committee
Judicial and quasi-judicial
should be here
decisions.
for the budget committee. Our statutes.
so you're saying that you would like to include the
Yep.
budget committee in the list of those who need to be there?
And then another suggestion that I think would be helpful is, up where the whereases are, I think that's fine. To add something that says, that basically says all vacancies shall be posted a minimum of 30 days. So that we, and no, time limit on how long they can be posted.
In the new resolution, if it's brought forward.
Yeah, and, cause I've looked and I've kind of dug through everything, and I didn't find anything
All
that said.
vacancies need to be posted
And it'd be nice to just, define that.
for no less than 30 days.
Yes, that's perfect.
How long are we posting for?
Typically, we post for 30 days. We say 30 days, although it's not defined anywhere.
Yeah, and I think it's been more of like a best practice.
Yes.
So.
Yes. I'm open for a motion
I
or
would agree
discussion.
the, council positions, planning commission and budget committee should be here present.
Okay.
Kathy, I think Rick asked a question.
Sorry, you. Rick.
I just wanted to clarify that whereas, make sure that we were on the same page. So what I wrote down, just,
The action for the requirement for posting should be a section, like section 7, all vacancies will be posted for 30 days.
Oh, it should be in, okay, it should be in the sections.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
So it would, see if I captured this right, section 7 would say all vacancies must be posted for 30 days before consideration. Is that-
No less than 30 days.
No less.
Less than 30 days.
That gives council a little more flexibility if they wanna post it for 60 days or for 45 days or, you know.
Thank you.
So, I'm trying to understand why, more clearly understand why we would want the budget committee, applicants to be present.
Mr. Hadley, would you like to address that?
Yeah, the budget committee is your money, and them people are very, I would like to interview the person, whoever they're gonna be here, I would like to ask questions. You know, we need to know, do they have any background in a budget? If they're not here, what do you know about them? You don't know anything, and they just get appointed to these positions.
Well, they fill out an application, and it has a
Absolutely,
lot of
but
questions.
the application isn't everything, one-on-one. I feel as a counselor, I would like to ask whoever it is gonna be on that.
Okay.
So just as a curiosity, and maybe some of staff can answer this question, how often when we have appointed for committees, have we had people who can't show up at that time? Is this a real oddity, and are we trying to make a resolution change for a small exception?
So usually I make the phone calls to
Okay.
remind people to be there for the meeting, and
Okay.
it is kind of an out of the norm.
You
It
don't
has
usually
happened
run into
maybe
this?
A handful of times since I've been here in a couple of years.
Okay, and so I guess my thought is, I tend to not manage by exception, because that just sends you down the rabbit hole really quickly. But is there any way that we can do one-offs? Or are we bound by this?
I think
We're bound by the existing resolution, and that's what we have to do. There isn't any way we can say, well, in this case, it's okay, we can give permission. We don't have that flexibility at all, do we?
short of.
I see it's shaking
I'm
shaking
not
no.
understanding what
Okay.
we do.
That's what I assumed, but I wanted to make sure that I asked for that. Okay.
So you were short of, I'm not understanding.
There was a motion made a couple months ago in regards to, setting aside the rules. But I'm very unfamiliar with that, so I didn't even hesitate.
Yeah,
Setting aside the rules has to do with Robert's Rules of Order, not our.
not our resolutions.
Oh, there we go, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, at this point, we would continue on with a motion, if that is what the council desires. Having no motion, we will move on to 7.2. Okay, go for it, Rick.
7.2, I'm sure you all know 7.2 and 7.3 tie into each other, so. First of all, 7.2, to rescind motion regarding non-redacted billing from Oakridge Law Group passed during special session of January 30th, 2019. The issue is, it has been brought to our attention that the motion made to view unredacted invoices from the local law group made during the council work session on January 30th of 2019 have been made improperly and illegally in regards to public meeting laws due to it not being posted on the agenda for that meeting. The Oregon form of government requires an informed public aware of deliberations and decisions of governing bodies and the information upon which such decisions were made. It is the intent of ORS 192.610 to 192.690 that decisions of governing bodies be delivered at openly. 192.640, public notices required. Special notices for executive session, special or emergency meetings. The governing body of a public body shall provide for and give public notice. Reasonable calculation, give the actual notice to interested persons, including news media which have requested notice, of the time and place for holding regular meetings. The notice shall also include a list of principal subjects anticipated to be considered at the meeting. But this requirement shall not limit the ability to govern body to consider additional subjects. And consider, by definition, is the term that means to think about, to ponder, to study, to examine carefully, but I do not believe it means to decide upon. So there's.
Thank you for reading that. I do have a question before we continue any further. In this, it states that a council work session, we voted. What, is this incorrect? Work session, or was it a special meeting?
Special.
It was a special meeting.
Okay, because I wanted to know how severely we violated the law. That's okay.
You didn't break the law. You didn't.
Sit down, guys.
Well, you say we broke the law, and I'm
Well,
saying.
I'm correcting the words work session to special meeting. That was my statement. Thank you. Now, according to what we've been advised, this was illegal, and we shouldn't have done that. We're not just throwing it out, we're asking that it be rescinded, and then if you'll notice on the next one, done correctly. So that's what this is about. All right, go ahead.
Who advised that it was done legally?
I believe staff did, and I'm assuming they had go ahead.
Part of it is in the code also. We also asked, when Christy was here, it was brought up to her too. Because our code states, that no item should be placed on the agenda unless it is ready for council action and our consideration. Action being a vote, and unless council is ready, which means that all councilors would have a chance to review a staff report at least, or at least the other information that other councilors might have before they vote, so that everybody has a chance to absorb the information and make an unbiased or educated decision. The other part of our code says that each regular meeting of the council, that is not a special meeting, that's not an emergency meeting, that's a regular meeting of the council, the mayor and each council member may bring up items not on the agenda. It says that they may bring them up, which means an item that isn't on the agenda, they may bring it up to have it placed at a later date so that a staff report could be done and presented to the council so that they consider it before voting on it. And that's what our code is, our law, so that is what was broken.
So that's the second time it was brought up, correct? State statute.
So, I want to interject here. We can spend a lot of time spinning, just a minute, please. We can spend a lot of time spinning our wheels about what is, what isn't, what should be, but the intent of what you want to do can be accomplished. So let's get on with it and accomplish it so that we can vote it and get what you wanted, or choose that we don't get what you wanted, depending on how the vote goes. So I would ask you for a little bit of latitude so we can move forward. Yes.
If this were true, then adding on the property sale that was not on the agenda would be another consideration. That was not on our agenda, and that was from the property sale.
Point of order.
No.
I'm not, point of order.
I am not going to
Point of order.
recognize that.
Staff can't add a rescinded
Mr.
issue,
Ball?
only the councilors who voted.
Mr. Ball, thank you.
Only the councilors who voted can add it. Illegal.
Go ahead.
I also, called and spoke to Patty Mulvihill with,
Mulvihill?
League of Oregon.
Yeah, League of Oregon Cities, she's an attorney there.
Yes, and she did quote me, the same, ORS that is quoted here in the agenda bill. She said it's widely practiced for counselors to add topics to agendas and to make motions. I did explain to her we talked about this subject in a prior work session.
Okay.
She also quoted that the Attorney General guides on page 145 also talks about public meeting law does not require that every proposed item of business be described in the notice. Her opinion was this was perfectly acceptable, and to add to that, Counselor Hadley and I interviewed 2 attorneys extensively yesterday, and he asked this exact question to both attorneys, and they both agreed with Patty. And they said this is widely practiced, nothing unusual. So obviously they are not our attorneys, but they are attorneys that we are selecting from.
Okay.
And so I really feel that if this is the case, then that would mean the property sale would also need to be rescinded as well.
So I'm trying to
Ms.
recall,
Whitney?
which meeting did the property sale come from?
January,
January 30th, I'm assuming.
not on the agenda.
No, was it a regular meeting or was it
That was the special session.
a special session?
I think
Okay,
the point
so-
was whether it's advertised or not, giving the public an opportunity. And
To-
according to Patty and the other attorneys, is
Mhm.
it happens all the time, and we have that liberty because of our ORS, which ORS does trump city ordinances.
Okay, so, just a minute. Just a minute. So I didn't hear what you said, Susie, I'm sorry. I need to know what you said.
Our code is ours and we are home rule,
And
which
we are home
means
rule.
this does,
This
on
supersedes
certain,
it.
certain things supersede. It is in there.
Right, thank you. So, Bobby?
So, from my experience at DOJ, one thing I learned is you have your federal laws, you have your Oregon administrative laws, and then there we worked on, you have your ORSs and your administrative laws, so we worked off of a lot of the administrative laws, so your federal laws kind of define what your ORS is, and then you'll take your ORSs from there and create your administrative laws, which is basically what governs what you're doing and defines it a little more. So ORSs don't necessarily trump our charter are our rules.
No, we're
So they kind of follow underneath, and so when we go to follow our rules, we're gonna go to our charter first and look at those, and if there's no rule in there that
Right.
basically meets what we're working on, then we might look at our ORS, so.
That's what happened, there is no rule in the charter on this. She's
Right.
talking about an ordinance.
I looked at it,
Okay.
It's code, this is ours, this is part of our
That's in our
charter.
charter?
yeah,
Yes,
it's in chapter 30.
No, charter is
Just a
different.
minute.
Charter
Oh.
is
The code is.
All right, council. So
Look at the supplement in the-
we are at the point here where I have to remind you that while you do not have to follow the advice of your staff, who also has the advice of an attorney, you don't have to follow it. It is always best practice to do that. But council is autonomous, and it can do what it chooses to do and suffer the consequences. And that is a very well chosen word. So, I don't wanna spend too much more time hashing this out about who is right and who is wrong. I know you seem to have a difference of opinion here on the bench, so, you have asked for unredacted copies to be viewed. That is not the issue here. Right now, what we're discussing is whether or not the initial asking was improper and we need to do it again. If you hold that it was proper and you wanna continue, then you
Suffer the
You just-
consequences.
exactly suffer the consequences.
Fine.
And you asked staff to continue and get those. Now, I am open to Mr. Messina if he can speak to interject anything here.
I don't know what's, I don't really have anything to add
Okay.
to the conversation.
Okay. And I don't see a hand from my friendly former mayor.
I think that you're kind of making a mountain out of a molehill. It's pretty obvious and clear, and not only in our ordinances, but in ORSs on how you run your meeting. I'm not exactly sure I understand what
Okay.
legally, so I can't really adjust that.
All right. Thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I do look for your hand. Okay. Concisely, Dawn?
I just wanted to point out that even though Susie did read from our code, which is ordinance, not charter, she also interjected her opinion on how that is to be interpreted,
We're
and
not gonna go back.
that's different.
Thank you. I can entertain a motion, since we have this on, in front of us.
So basics, what you're saying is, because we've done this, it's wrong and it's not gonna get done redacted.
No, that's what the next motion is, to make
Right,
that
but if
happen.
we don't have this, you're saying it won't happen, it'll still happen.
No, it will
It'll still
happen.
happen.
You can, if you choose to continue and direct that it happens in this manner without protecting yourself, in my opinion, then that's fine, but
That's fine.
that's what you have to do. I just have to make this clear, okay? So, I'm entertaining the motion. Go ahead.
I move we rescind the motion made at the special session of 1/30/19. The motion, we get the unredacted statements from the attorney for January 1st, 2018, ending December 31st, 2018.
Do I hear a second?
And when are you gonna get these things around
Just
this?
a minute, one thing at a time. Do I hear a second? With no second, it dies. Okay. So the direction to staff to provide the unredacted statement still stands. Based on the first time it was given, or perhaps the second time it was given, I'm not sure which one, but that one stands, and we'll ask staff to do that. Staff and mayor will set an executive session. Is there any further business besides public, whoa, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, what was the comment about executive session
We will review them in executive session.
with staff, so council and staff?
Council will review them in executive session.
Will the attorney be there?
Do you want the attorney there?
Yeah, we do. I do, I would like, because we need representation. And when is this gonna be done? When we're gonna get this paper?
Well, we have to arrange that. We have to figure out when
I
that
just
happens.
want to make a statement. When these are to be reviewed in executive session, I will not be present. I will excuse myself from that meeting, just because I strongly feel that we put the city at risk. When we review these and we start trying to interject and work outside our scope, we put the city at risk
That's fine.
as a
Thank
whole. And if anything's released about any personnel, staff that are listed, that comes out of that executive session, if it's released anywhere, it puts the city at risk as a whole, and I think it's just sending us somewhere that we don't need to go.
You didn't
And
want to
I
see him anyway,
will-
so you're.
Mr. Hadley,
Please don't assume that, I just do not wanna be there because
Mr.
I do not wanna put myself at risk.
thank
as
you
an
for that
individual
statement.
counselor.
Thank you, and that is a fair statement to be made. We have public comment from Trudy Hammond.
Well, I wanted to let you know I'm volunteering to paint, cause we spoke this morning and you said.
Then I said I wanted to paint the wall in the
Yes.
council chamber. Why, thank you very much. And Stephen Ball was the other one who signed up, and he has left. So if that is all before the council or the public, this meeting is adjourned.
No lynching today.